From Swami Sri Yukteswar, only a few individuals can rise above the influences of their professed creeds and find absolute unanimity in the truths propounded by all great faiths. People who are wholly engrossed in mundane concerns are in need of help and guidance. All creatures are eager to realize eternal existence, consciousness, and bliss. Again from Sri Yukteswar, only a few individuals can rise above the influences of their professed creeds and find absolute unanimity in the truths propounded by all great faiths. People who are wholly engrossed in mundane concerns are in need of help and guidance. All creatures are eager to realize eternal existence, consciousness, and bliss. This is from Swami Sri Yukteswar. Something to contemplate. In today's section, section 3 of this, what we're calling a crash course in Kriya Yoga, this 4-part series, we're going to be discussing essentially what gets in the way. So that what gets in the way of experiencing satisfying spiritual growth. Again, this is a 4-part series. I'll put a link in the bottom of this video to the playlist. And remember, the purpose of this crash course is just to help clarify some basics about the whole Kriya Yoga process. But you have hours of available lectures and teaching on this channel, Kriya Yoga, youtube.com/Kriya Yoga Online. Go to the playlist section. There's a free 10-hour retreat playlist. There's numerous other playlists specific. I believe there's a 21 video course on Kriya Yoga there. There's downloadable courses for you at kriyayogaonline.com. An 11-hour training course, 26-hour Yoga Sutras course. And those of you who feel a strong inspiration to learn and practice Kriya Yoga, there is the 2-year Kriya Yoga apprenticeship course, again, described at kriyayogaonline.com. So this is just to get you into it. This is just to give you some understanding. But you need to go deeper. There's plenty of opportunities and options for you. Let's take a moment to review. There's a list here from Roy Eugene Davis where he discusses what gets in the way of our Kriya Yoga process. He says that some reasons why Kriya initiates do not experience satisfying spiritual growth, some reasons why Kriya initiates do not experience satisfying spiritual growth or waver in their resolve or stray from the path are as follows. There's 11 of them. They were insincere when initiated or only curious. There was lack of preparation, not understanding the philosophical basis of Kriya Yoga practices, or not having practiced the basic meditation procedures and routines before being initiated. Inability to comprehend the teachings. Insufficient commitment to practice what is learned. Confusion and lack of focus because of indiscriminate mixing or adulteration of metaphysical studies, lifestyle regimens, and meditation practices with incompatible ideas and practices. Disinterest. Egotism dramatized by arrogance, a rigid self-righteous mental attitude maintained in an attempt to justify erroneous opinions or self-centered behaviors. Mental and/or emotional instability. Being overwhelmed by or preoccupied with problems, transitory events, unnecessary obligations, or social relationships which are of little or no value. Emotional immaturity. Being unable or unwilling to be responsible for mental and emotional states, choices, actions, or circumstances. And the last one, choosing to remain ordinary. Choosing to remain ordinary, to sustain emotionally satisfying relationships and fulfill the expectations of others, who do not aspire to be self-realized and liberated. So here's a full list of why your spiritual practices or your spiritual growth probably isn't working. They were insincere when initiated or only curious. Those are the people who've read Autobiography of a Yogi. Seems like a nice way to collect another spiritual teacher or tradition. So they go to a retreat, or they practice and they become initiated, and they just to see what happens. Nothing really is going to come of that. And for more information on initiation, again, you want to see the chapter in the book Kriya Yoga Vichara, Vichara. That's the last word, Kriya Yoga Vichara. There's a specific chapter there on initiation, what it's all about, and how to make the best of it. Lack of preparation, not understanding the philosophical basis of the practices, or not having practiced basic meditation procedures before being initiated. Kind of goes back to the first bullet point here. This is one of the reasons why there are numerous people who are interested in the Kriya Yoga apprenticeship program, and they'll apply. And there's a reason I ask in the application, what are your previous practices and intentions and understanding? And if you're brand new and you're just curious, or you just have a one line that says, I just want to spread the love for God, it just helps me understand that you don't really have an understanding of the philosophical basis of Kriya Yoga. So I will often tell people, okay, study some of this preliminary stuff that we've been discussing. If you feel after studying that, yeah, this is right, I get this now, this makes sense for me and where I want to direct my life, then you apply to the Kriya Yoga apprenticeship program, or you find a Kriya Yoga teacher appropriate to you to become initiated. Then you'll get the most satisfying experience from the process. Inability to comprehend the teachings. That's a little hard to remedy. Essentially, it's hard for numerous reasons. Number one, if you can't comprehend it, you're less likely to try. If you don't comprehend it, oftentimes you think you do, but you don't. So how do you fix that? Well, number one, if you have an inspiration towards Kriya Yoga and you don't comprehend the teachings, well, keep thinking about them, keep meditating on them, keep trying to understand them. That will lead to understanding eventually. Or talk to someone who does have an understanding of it, as far as you can tell. And it may be that they don't make sense to you. I mean, you have to be careful with that, because, for example, when I was in Asheville, there were numerous teachers that came through that would just get up on their little chair and talk to the audience, and they were just talking in circles, and it didn't make any sense, just because it didn't make any sense. So you have to be careful with that. But if it doesn't make any sense to you because it seems basic, fundamental to living a good life, well, then maybe you need to get behind that first, and then it'll start to make some more sense to you. But if it doesn't make sense to you because it's too far out of your range, metaphysically speaking, don't worry too much about that. That will come in time. And again, when you get into comparisons between, do I understand this metaphysically, or does this other teacher understand it metaphysically? It's hard, because if you don't have discernment yourself, you won't really know if the person that you're interacting with actually also has discernment. So that's a little bit of a sticking point in that bullet point. Insufficient commitment to practice what is learned. Well, that's obvious. If you don't have the commitment to practice a musical instrument, even though you know what you're supposed to do and you've got a good teacher, you're not going to learn to practice the musical instrument or play the musical instrument. Confusion and lack of focus because of indiscriminate mixing and adulteration of metaphysical studies and lifestyle regimens and so on. Well, that happens too commonly now that we have such access to all different kinds of teachers and teachings in this world because of the internet and the globalization of these things. It's usually best to stick with one teacher at a time, give them a good year or two, so that you develop greater discernment about what really works for you and what doesn't. When people write to me and they want to learn, they say, well, I have this teacher in India, or I have this other teacher. I usually tell them, stick with that teacher, because you should stick with one teacher at a time. Don't jump around. And that will help with your discrimination. Disinterest, it's obvious. Egotism dramatized by arrogance, a rigid self-righteous mental attitude, an attempt to justify erroneous opinions or self-centered behaviors. Many people get involved in spiritual practices because they want to believe in something and they want to justify what they believe. And that can get in the way. Mental and or emotional instability. That's common in this world because of how people were raised, the state of our society. So you need to take seriously a process of becoming more mentally and emotionally stable. Work with a professional. Commit yourself to it. Get some self-help books. Figure out what an emotionally stable person actually looks like, lives like, and begin to embody that. That can't be overemphasized. In fact, I don't really have the sense that people should even be practicing Kriya Yoga if they haven't worked out the mental and emotional instability. Now, of course, there will be times when you become mentally and emotionally unstable because of things that happen. That's just life. We're talking about consistent instability, not riding the waves of life, not you come upon a storm and you have to navigate it. That just happens. It's when you're sailing your ship and it's perfectly calm waters and the wind's blowing nicely and you think there's still problems everywhere. Being overwhelmed or preoccupied with problems, transitory events, unnecessary obligations, or social relationships which are of little or no value. In our current era, even individuals who have very little money live like kings and queens compared to people 200, 300, 400 years ago. Because of technology, because of even the most basic conveniences that most of us take for granted these days, we have plenty of time to devote to our spiritual practice. But it's because of social media, it's because of just having being addicted to distracted mental states, that we preoccupy ourselves with unnecessary obligations or social relationships. Now, again, what is important to you? Part of the whole process is learning to make sacrifices for what is important to you. If certain activities get in your way and they're not getting in the way of your livelihood, cut them out. If certain people are distracting to you, always causing you problems, making you think about them all the time and pulling you into their drama, get rid of it. Do the bare minimum of what you need to do when it comes to social obligations, when it comes to events and these sorts of things, such that you are happy and peaceful, not neurotically pulled in different directions. That's how you know when something is of little or no value, when you are neurotically pulled towards it. And it's like you have to break an addiction to it. That's part of the sacrifice you have to make. If you can learn to do that, you'll have plenty of energy, plenty of time, plenty of space to get these satisfying experiences of your spiritual growth process. Emotional immaturity. We'll let you figure that one out on your own. Choosing to remain ordinary, to sustain emotionally satisfying relationships and fulfill the expectations of others who do not aspire to be self-realized and liberated. The process of self-realization and this whole idea of liberation of consciousness brings with it a whole different set of priorities that most people have. And so if you're fulfilling the expectations of others who don't have that priority, you're going to be like a rat on a wheel. The expectations and priorities that I took seriously in my life, most of the time, were those of my spiritual teacher, Roy Davis, and my wife. Those are the two people whose expectations that I took seriously. Now, of course, my wife was also a Kriya yogi. So she understood the whole process. You don't have to have a partner on the same spiritual path with you, as long as they respect and understand your own priorities. We can talk about this at length, but the focus here is on letting go of this desire to remain ordinary while avoiding dramatizing your spirituality. It is not saying become unordinary in the way you dress and act. You should fit in. It's having a different compass inside. Having a different compass inside. Mr. Davis goes on to write that when opposite conditions prevail, meaning opposite conditions to this, when opposite conditions prevail, innate soul qualities unfold rapidly. So when the opposite conditions to this prevail, your innate soul qualities will unfold rapidly, naturally, as if a dam has been removed from a river. So resolve to be fully awake constantly. Attention and actions remain focused on meaningful purposes which are of real value. Focus on that. The choices we make determine our experiences. The results of irrational, not clearly defined, emotion-based choices are never satisfying. Radical knowledge based and supported by universal and personal laws of causation, those choices are transformative. When mental attitudes, thoughts, moods, behaviors, relationships, actions, and circumstances which enhance our lives, the lives of others, and keep us attuned to the nurturing influence of the field of consciousness that empower evolutionary processes are chosen, then living is effortless and spiritual growth is spontaneous. That's what you want, isn't it? But in order to recognize that, you have to counteract these things which are contrary to the process. In the same way that if a river is dammed up, you have to go do the hard work to tear that dam down. It's not going to come down by itself. But when you do, the water flows freely. When mental attitudes, thoughts, moods, behaviors, relationships, actions, and circumstances which enhance our lives and the lives of others and keep us attuned to the nurturing influences of the field of consciousness that empower evolutionary processes are chosen, living is effortless and spiritual growth is spontaneous. Now again, the words of Sri Yukteswar. Only a few individuals can rise above the influences of their professed creeds and find absolute unanimity in the truths propounded by all great faiths. People who are wholly engrossed in mundane concerns are in need of help and guidance. All creatures are eager to realize the eternal existence, consciousness, and bliss. That's from Sri Yukteswar.